I podcast dell'ACIS, alla ricerca delle culture, storie, lingue e identità italiane, un articolo o libro alla volta. Episodio 3.
Welcome to the ACIS podcast series, in search of Italian cultures, histories, languages and identities, one article or book at a time. Each episode discusses a recent publication by an Italianist working in Australia or Aotearoa. This is episode 3.
Welcome back everyone to the Australasian Centre for Italian Studies podcast series. I'm Luca.
And I'm Mili.
You know, Mili, you and I, we're so much less than human. And yet we have this incredible honour of giving voice to the work of some of the most brilliant human minds in Italian studies across Australia and New Zealand.
That's a funny way of putting it, but very true.
Mili, do you want to tell our audience what we'll be discussing today?
Sure thing. We'll be discussing The Ecology of the Performance Art Process by Dr. Andrea Viora from Monash University. This book has just been published by Routledge.
Proprio così. This is a brilliant and thought-provoking book, one of those rare books that genuinely shifts how you think about art. It doesn't just analyse performance art as something to be seen, but as something lived, offered and co-created.
That's right, Luca. Angela invites us to think of performance not as a fixed object or even a single moment, but as a kind of living ecosystem made up of space, time, and the body, all interacting in unexpected, powerful ways. And what's powerful is the way she balances theory with practice. This book is deeply informed by her own work as a performance artist. There are concrete, poetic examples that pull you right into the experience.
One of my favourites is her piece Mapping the Sound, where Angela navigates spaces blindfolded, guided only by sound. The body becomes a listening instrument. It's not performance as spectacle, it's performance as sensorial research.
Yes, and that connects to her core idea that performance is a process of fragmentation and union. The performer is constantly being disassembled through time, attention, fatigue, and then reassembled in relation to others, to space, to forces around her.
Yes. Angela also takes seriously the role of the audience, not just as viewers, but as co-creators. She frames performance as an offer, not an imposition. It asks something of you. It invites you in.
And it challenges you. Because performance, for Angela, is uncomfortable. It's relational, unstable, always unfolding. She's deeply influenced by thinkers like Jane Bennett and Bruno Latour, so objects, air, architecture, all matter.
So, why should people read this book? Well, in my opinion, if you care about performance art, this book is for you. But more broadly, if you're curious about how we relate through art, space, time, the body, this book is a must.
I agree. It's a great book for artists, theorists, teachers, and honestly anyone who's ever been transformed by a moment of presence. A moment where things didn't quite fit, but something happened anyway.
And if you're tired of definitions that reduce art to outcomes or products, Angela Viora's book is a breath of air, unpredictable, precise and deeply felt.
I could not agree more. Now, we are lucky to be able to speak to Angela herself and ask her a couple of questions. Buongiorno Angela, come va?
Buongiorno Mili, buongiorno Luca, ciao a tutti.
It's our pleasure to have you on board, and congratulations on your book. We'd love to ask you a couple of questions.
I'll go first. You describe performance as something shaped by people, places, and even non-human forces. How does shifting focus away from the artist change how we think about who creates a performance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As also Luca mentioned before, a performance is the experience of it, and that is given by the bodies involved in the work, which is mine, the one of the performer, those in the audiences, bodies that the work could refer to, but also time and space. For example, Luca mentioned before mapping the sound, and I have synesthesia, so I see with the eye of my mind, I see sounds as marks with texture, with shapes, and so I wanted to see what the soundscape looks like, and this is what I did. I performed blindfolded, moving and drawing on a big piece of paper the sounds around me, and I performed these in different venues, for example, libraries, and there were construction works and hammering and drilling and people going back and forth. Without those people making those sounds, I could have not drawn anything. I could have not performed, you see. And then some people would stop and see what I was doing, and that would influence the way they perceive the work. And it's all connected, and time passing. Many times I was fatigued, I was tired, and I stopped drawing, or I drew differently, the sound around me. So, and that gave a different time and a different experience of the performance. So, it's never only about the performer.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Angela. And here's a question from me. Your book highlights fragmentation and union as key forces in performance. Do you think these ideas also offer an ethical way of thinking about performance, one that values openness and sees vulnerability as a way of learning?
Absolutely. Fragmentation, union, and vulnerability as a way of learning. Fragmentation and union, I show in the book, are not dichotomic elements. There are two forces, always like dancing and informing each other in a sort of loop. This means that in a performance, there are elements of fragmentation, for example, in mapping the sounds, all the sounds like, disrupting the surrounding environment, the soundscape, but also the drawing. It's an element of union, it was acting like a visual bridge between the sound and time and our bodies in space. I also use fragmentation and union as an analytical lens in my classes. For example, when we studied Risorgimento, the movement that led to the unification of Italy in the 19th century, we see how much, Italy was fragmented, was politically divided, but also there was, as an element of union, the common willpower, the common sentiment to get free from foreign powers and get united under the same flag. And this is very effective to show to my students that is never black and white, and it's always a process when it comes to any kind of performance. Vulnerability absolutely is a value in my practice. If you are not vulnerable, you cannot experience anything, which means that as an audience member, you gotta be there with the work. Make yourself available to receive what the work, is telling you, is giving you. And what we're going to learn is always more about yourself than the work itself. I have many people crying during my performances or, getting upset and so on and so forth. So it's a process of mirroring. It's something I use as a technique in my classes when, for example, we learn about, again, 19th century, the Romanticism. And what I do is to actually bring my students outside the classroom. And we, through different techniques, we actually make ourselves available to the surrounding environment so they can understand what the Romantic artists and writers were telling us about the relationship between our inner landscape, emotional landscape, and the landscape outside, around our bodies.
Wow, thank you, Angela. Most interesting insights. And thanks so much for talking to us and to our listeners.
Thanks from me too. We'll let you go now and hope to see you soon again here in this little podcast series.
Thank you for having me and tuning in.
Thanks again, Angela. We are going to take a little break now before we wrap it up with a couple more thoughts on Angela's work. Stay tuned.
And we are back. So, Millie, what else did you like in the book?
Okay, well, I learned that space is not just a container, it actively shapes what is going on. And the same thing goes for time, but it is how they are connected, all these things as well.
How so?
So, it's not just the humans doing something, but there is agency also in the room they are in, the light, everything.
You mean that a space is almost a participant, some kind of collaborator?
Exactly. Then, Angela explains how she sees performances as sort of time-space in action.
That's a great connection. Time-space. So there is nothing fixed. Everything has agency.
Yep. When space and time have a relational quality, performances remain grounded in a specific here and now. It keeps it all human, keeps all grounded in experience.
So, Millie, let's bring this all together. What are your big takeaways from Angela's work?
For me, the biggest thing I understood was relationality, the connections within the art itself. It's never static, right? I think that's part of what makes it so hard to define sometimes.
Yep, but that constant change, it feels key to its very being. And I think the book drives that home, that it's always in motion, it's always relational, it can actually bring light into the world.
Definitely a way of understanding, a way of reaching out that really ties into those cultural moments.
Yes, that's a great way of putting it. And that's it. That's all the time we have for today. We've run out of time, big time, Andrea tells us.
Yep. Okay, once again, a big thanks to Dr. Angela Viora for sharing her work with us. We hope you'll want to explore this topic further by reading Angela's book, which is now out. It's titled The Ecology of the Performance Art Process, Fragmentation, Union, Reconfiguration, published by Routledge. Look out for it online or in bookshops.
Thank you all for tuning in, and be sure to check out our other episodes at the Australasian Centre for Italian Studies. See you soon.
Arrivederci e a presto!
This series is produced by the Australasian Centre for Italian Studies using a Gen AI platform. The hosts' voices are artificial, while the authors are original. The episodes are edited by Andrea Rizzi, with the assistance and approval of the authors responsible for the research discussed in each episode. If you would like to contribute, please write to admin@acis.org.au